Tutaj William. Witajcie na 100-tygodniowym podsumowaniu polskich wiadomości ze mną, William Murphy. Poland's main news stories over the past week have included average daily new COVID-19 case numbers drop off substantially, but with record deaths reported on Wednesday. The government announces some relaxation of COVID-19 restrictions from this weekend, but with schools, restaurants and gyms to remain closed. Poland maintains its opposition to the new EU rule of law mechanism, while a Financial Times article maintains it's unlikely ever to be used in practice. And Limerick's Polish Arts Festival opens online tonight. Poland has reported something of a respite in reported COVID-19 case numbers over the past week, with a marked improvement compared to earlier in November. Last Saturday, the government announced that from this coming weekend, shops which were previously closed in shopping malls will be allowed to reopen. However, there's no good news for parents concerning one of the measures with the most impact, especially for working parents: the closure of even primary schools, with all teaching moving online. Many parents have highlighted the difficulty of assisting often very young children with online learning, while also attempting to perform work tasks from home. The government said that schools will remain closed effectively until January the 18th at the earliest, with winter holidays being brought forward. Restaurants, gyms, cinemas and pubs will also remain closed until at least December 27th. Making the announcement, Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki asked Poles to show 100 days of solidarity that will allow us to better get through this period. He claimed that by the end of that period, a COVID-19 vaccine should have started to become available. On Wednesday, Poland reported 15,362 new COVID-19 cases, and a record high number of deaths, 674, at least partially attributed to coronavirus, but with the caveat that most had serious existing conditions unrelated to COVID-19. Yesterday's figures brought the total number of reported COVID-19 cases in Poland since the outbreak began to over 924,000, with just under 15,000 deaths. On Monday, a Deputy Health Minister, Waldemar Kraska, warned that the government is considering bringing in restrictions on people visiting their extended families over the Christmas period. Traditionally in Poland, Wigilia is an important family occasion involving a major meal on Christmas Eve, for which people often travel a considerable distance. The controversy over the proposed new so-called rule of law mechanism, which the EU institutions wish to implement, and on account of which Poland and Hungary withheld their consent to the new 6-year EU budget and COVID-19 Economic Rescue Fund, continued this week. Last Thursday, the Sejm, on a 236 to 209 vote, supported a motion backing the government's tough stance over the attempt to link EU funding to the so-called rule of law issue. It warned against any mechanism that contains unclear, imprecise rules that could be interpreted in a biased way. Last Friday, the Irish Times joined in the debate with an editorial entitled "The Irish Times View on the EU Budget, a Standoff over European Values." As in previous cases of controversies involving the current Polish government, the editorial was highly critical of the Polish position, and very much reflected the standpoint of the EU institutions. It ended with the following comments, which succinctly summarise its message. EU leaders must not back down on this issue of principle. The Union's finances cannot be held hostage. If necessary, they must sidestep unanimity provisions by developing mechanisms to raise and dispense money outside the structures of the EU institutions, or avail themselves of treaty-enhanced cooperation provisions that allow the Eurozone and the Schengen area to develop and apply policy for coalitions of member states. It may well be argued, however, that the editorial writer ignored the point that the question is not fundamentally about respect for the rule of law per se, but rather, in the view of Poland and Hungary, who judges the question of whether or not the rule of law is being respected, as well as the irony of advocating remedies for the alleged hostage holding by Poland and Hungary by setting up new frameworks outside the legal remit of the European Union. The budget impasse has gained press coverage elsewhere as well. The London-based Financial Times covered the controversy in an article on Tuesday, taking the line that the proposed new rule of law mechanism may never be used in practice. The article argued that the draft EU text shows that the EU has arguably missed its opportunity to create a sanctions mechanism with teeth and instead opted for one that may never be used in practice. It quoted an unnamed European Parliament official as saying that the new procedure is not a rule of law mechanism, but a procedurally flawed anti-corruption tool, which, it said, raises the fundamental question of whether the rule of law mechanism will ever be used. The article cited criticisms by EU officials that the Commission was unlikely to attempt to impose sanctions on any member state, because such a move would likely be struck down in the European courts, with one official concluding that it will never be enforced and will only create political resentment on all sides. Poland continues to report relatively strong economic news given the current circumstances. However, consumer confidence has taken a severe dent. On Wednesday, the Central Statistical Office reported that unemployment in Poland remained unchanged at 6.1% in October for the fifth month in a row. At the end of October, there were 1,018,400 people without work, compared to 1,023,700 the previous month. The government's revised 2020 budget envisaged unemployment hitting 8% at the end of the year. The European Union Statistics Agency, Eurostat, has a different methodology for calculating unemployment, and it put the Polish jobless rate at just 3.1% in September, which is the second lowest amongst all 27 member states. House building has also been proceeding at a brisk pace in Poland. The Central Statistical Office reported that the number of new house completions was 6.1% higher in the 10 months to the end of October, compared to the same period last year, with 176,400 completions. However, the number of new housing starts in the same period was down 7.7% at 186,900. Polish consumer sentiment is down sharply though, with the Central Statistical Office reporting that its current consumer confidence index fell 9.2 points in November compared to October, to score a negative figure of 29.2. The drop coincided with a sharp upsurge in reported COVID-19 cases, as well as further government restrictions on economic and social activity during the same period. More than 1,200 academics have signed a letter calling for truth and respect for the late Pope John Paul II, following recent claims of inaction on his part in the face of paedophilia in the Catholic Church. The letter states that, in recent days, we have been observing a wave of accusations made against John Paul II, with the late pontiff being accused of covering up cases of paedophilia among Catholic clergy, and there are calls for removing his public memorials. These actions aim to change the image of a person worthy of the highest respect into someone jointly guilty of offensive crimes. The letter, whose signatories include former Prime Minister Hanna Suchocka, said that the late pontiff played a great role in the process of the liberation of the nations of Central and Eastern Europe from the rule of the Soviet Union, and that he was the spiritual leader of Poles in the Solidarity and Martial Law period. Limerick's Polish Arts Festival, Festiwal Sztuki Polskiej Limerick, will be celebrated primarily online this year, but the line-up looks as impressive as ever. The theme of the exhibitions, events and workshops this year is Together as One, with events running from today until December 13th. This is the 13th year of the festival, which commenced in 2007, with events taking place in the Hunt Museum, the Bell Table, and of course this year primarily online. Justyna Wojcinska, the festival's artistic director, said that the Polish Arts Festival vision is to challenge, optimise and showcase through our arts festival the outstanding potential of artistic capabilities that exist within Polish and Irish communities. Join us this year, maybe for the first time, and see that together we are one. The Polish Arts Festival is a community organisation that integrates and promotes Polish culture and artists through collaboration with Limerick artists and venues. Full details about the festival events can be found online at polishartsfestival.ie. We'll finish this week on a lighter, or maybe in this case the more appropriate term is deeper note. What's now reportedly the deepest diving pool in the world opened in Myszanów near Warszawa last weekend. The 45.7 metre pool, called Deep Spot, will allow divers to explore deep underwater, including among artificial underwater caves and a sunken boat. The facility, which cost around 40 million zloty to build, will hold 8,000 cubic metres of water, which is 27 times that found in a standard 25 metre swimming pool, the news website Onet.pl reported. To wszystko na ten tydzień.